All right, ladies and gentlemen, I do apologize. A 34-minute delay. Hopefully we are back online right now. I have never worked so hard to get a show going here tonight. It is me. It is Eric Balkman at Eric Balkman. It is the HSFF Hour at HSFF Hour on Twitter. And I think we are finally ready to bring aboard our guest tonight, ladies and gentlemen. He has been playing fantasy football in a friends league for about 10 years, and 5 years ago he discovered Money League, started dabbling and doing quite well with a shared team with his wife. He joined the FFPC last year for a few weeks before the season, did 4 Football Guys teams, few best ball leagues, and a Terminator team as well. This past spring, congratulations.
Mira. The audio just went out. He was introducing me.
She take it from you.
No.
He said he never knew it was possible. Ironically, that is the team that is now in 5th place in the Football Guys Players Championship. Please welcome former minor league hockey goalie and current lawyer and your 5th place overall Football Guys Players Championship team owner, Jeff Blair. Jeff, I cannot thank you enough for hanging out as long as you did. Welcome to the program, man.
Oh, thanks, Eric. Thanks for having me.
I listen. This is a world record. We've got almost 800,000 downloads, well over 500 shows. Never had a 34-minute delay before. So congratulations to you for putting up with that tonight, my friend.
No
let's
problem.
Get into it
that
right
usually
away.
happens with me and technology.
Yeah, you have no idea the history of bad technology on this show. It was a perfect storm, I guess, today. So I want to get into fantasy football, obviously, with you. But before we do that, can you tell us sort of how you got to become a collegiate hockey player, played in the minors for a little bit, and how you got into your current field of law?
Oh, yeah, sure. I was a big hockey player. I'm from Buffalo, New York, so we grew up playing hockey. Went to a high school that's pretty famous for producing some great hockey players. I was not one of the great ones, but managed to get some calls for college. Played goalie in college for 4 years, and then my senior year, some of the minor league teams started calling. So I wasn't drafted or anything, but played in the minors for almost 2 years till they sent me packing because I was about 5'9" on a good day, and then decided I needed to go to get a real job. And my father was a lawyer growing up, so I always had an interest in the law, and then eventually made it into law school, and then wound up just staying in Buffalo and joining the firm, and now we're partners together with a small business firm.
What was, just curiously, what was minor league hockey like? Is it as unglamorous as it sounds?
I mean, it depends what you think of, Subway, Blimpie, Burger King. Those can be pretty glamorous. And yeah, it was very unglamorous, but it was a great experience. Very glad I chose to do it. And some of the best memories of my life were those long bus rides. A lot of the leagues were in Texas. Teams were in Texas, believe it or not. So I've seen the great state of Texas. But, believe it or not, one of the guys on our team, he made it in the NHL for like 6 years. So he was on his way down. So he had the stories of, playing on the line with Igor Larionov, one of the greatest players ever, to riding a bus with us.
And that's sort of like, I don't know if you ever saw the movie Semi-Pro, but that was sort of Woody Harrelson's character in that movie where he won the NBA championship with the Celtics and then played with the Flint Tropics to end his career. So I guess that's how your teammate was. Speaking of teammates, I want to welcome in my teammate right now, the KFFSC Commissioner, Farrell Elliott. Farrell, I do apologize for all the audio issues, man. But we have you aboard right now with 5th place team owner in the Football Guys Players Championship, Jeff Blair. How you doing, buddy? Welcome in.
Hey, it's great.
Hey,
Jeff, it's good to finally catch up with you guys. I don't mind missing the first however many minutes I've been gone, but now you're talking movies without me, and now now I'm a little heartache now. And I feel that I've missed a lot of great information from you, Jeff. Congratulations on such a wonderful start to the season.
Oh, thanks. Thank you. But we'll see. We'll see. It's a lot of luck.
Well, and there is the luck element into it, and there's strategy that goes into it as well. And some would say stacking is important. And Farrell, you have a question about stacking, specifically about Jeff's fifth-place team and how he employed that strategy, my friend.
Good job, Jeff. You know, the stack mastering that you have been on has put you in some mighty tall cotton for this season. You know, I ask a lot of the guys a question, because this is how I approach stacking. If I go out planning to target certain players from teams, it doesn't ever seem to work that way. But if it falls to me, I just sort of accept it and go after it. Your stack that has been so successful, Tyreek Hill at 1.8, Patrick Mahomes at 3.8. Was this a plan, or was it something that just happened?
Well, it's interesting. A good question, because I actually learned about stacking from watching, I think, old podcasts of you gentlemen. So when I really started diving into fantasy, it occurred to me that I started reading the articles and the data on stacking. And so obviously I figured in a big tournament, low-odd tournament like this, I figured stacking was a good solution. But I agree with you, Farrell. If you go in planning for it, you might be reaching on some draft picks that you might regret later.
I think that's how, like, when we talk about stacking and season long too, I think that's how the really successful players do it. Nobody goes in saying, "Oh, I got the 8 pick. I'm going to take Hill at 8, and I'll grab Mahomes either on the back, on the turn, or I'm going to grab him in the third round." Nobody does that. At least nobody successful that I know. It's just one of those things with happenstance, where if it presents itself, you take advantage of it. I got a Kentucky team too, where I didn't set out to stack, but I ended up with Godwin, Antonio Brown, Tom Brady, Gronk on that team. That's just the way it ended up. It's not something you set out to do, and I think that's how the most successful high-stakes fantasy players play it. Now, a question for you, Jeff, and we got word today that Alex Collins did not practice once again for Seattle. Now, it is the Monday night game, so the Saturday practice rather than the Friday practice will be the biggest tell. But right now, and I shouldn't say right now, but earlier today, you had Alex Collins in as a starting running back for you over Josh Jacobs. This is in the 5th place overall team. So do you believe that despite Alex Collins not practicing yesterday or today, he's still worth the roll of the dice on Monday night? Or if he doesn't practice tomorrow, are you getting him out of there and putting Josh Jacobs in?
Yeah, I think I was just being a little bit optimistic or lazy with my lineup there. I think I'll put Josh Jacobs in there. The safer with the Monday night, I don't think I could risk it. But yeah, I'll be looking at the Seahawks practice report tomorrow. But versus the Saints Rushdie, I probably won't go with my gut there. I'll probably chicken out and put Jacobs in.
You never can go wrong. You never can go wrong with the Raiders, Jeff. Now, there's another player that I haven't gone wrong with over the years, especially when I look back to 2017, 2018. And I thought that this year the 13th, 14th, 15th round would roll around, and he would be there. And I was getting him at every turn, and that's one Zach Ertz. And I didn't believe that the career was over. Actually, I've always thought with Ertz that a little something, even though 9 years, 2 Pro Bowls, a Super Bowl, I've always thought that something was missing. Now he leaves Philadelphia. He comes to Arizona, loaded with this talented roster and this multidimensional quarterback. And I don't think a better player and a better target could be in the center of the field. I think he's going to be successful at Philadelphia. Now it's unlimited success, and I'm thinking, man, in the mid-teens, didn't I pick an excellent player? And I'm looking to put him in my lineups this weekend. Are you doing the same?
Oh, you better believe it. Yeah, that's interesting, Farrell. I actually was targeting him in the drafts solely because there's so many rumors. Again, I'm from Buffalo. I was hoping and expecting that he would wind up on the Bills. But I drafted him thinking there's something left in the tank and hoping he would get dealt. I was hoping he'd get dealt this summer, but I think that's probably why we were able to get him in the 15th round.
And
he's
Jeff,
got a new home now. That's good.
Yeah.
I'm excited Jeff, for the Arizona.
But I think as a Bills fan, you have to be, certainly disappointed that Ertz didn't come aboard initially. You got to be thrilled with what you've seen from Dawson Knox, my friend.
Oh, yeah, he's been unbelievable. The guy's a touchdown machine. But I think lots of gentlemen could do well in the Bills tight end because this defenses seem to really be paying attention to Diggs and Sanders this year. So, he's just wide open some plays.
All right, so Farrell is going to ask you a question about why you loaded up on the Bills, and I think we already have our answer there. But before we get to why you were so bullish on so many Bills this year, I do want to ask you a little bit about your bidding this week for this fifth-place team overall in the Footballguys Players Championship. Jared Patterson is who you acquired. You bid on him. You won him. I wouldn't say it was crazy. I think it was less than $100 you bid on him. But the question really is this. Was this a case of, okay, the waiver wire ran Wednesday night. We didn't know exactly what Antonio Gibson's shin, his stress fracture, whatever it is, was going to be like there. We didn't know how serious it was. Was this a case of just kind of, covering your behind to try to make sure that you had a piece of that Washington run game in case Gibson couldn't go on Sunday? Or was this a case of, hey, look, that Patterson, I believe in him. I think he could be a difference maker here at the end of my bench down the stretch. Take us through the thought process of why you decided to bid on and ultimately win Jared Patterson.
Yeah, I think you touched on both reasons. I think it was a combo. One, I do believe in the player because, again, another Buffalo connection. He was a UB, University of Buffalo back. He broke all the records and went undrafted. I'd argue just because of 40 times and height, which we know how much that does not mean these days. But something you touched on, Eric, is really I just believe I believe in that Washington running game. So I believe whoever, as we saw last night with Johnson, some teams are built to run the ball, and there's lots of capable backs out there. So I just have the feeling, I'm hoping, well, no, I shouldn't say I'm hoping, but each game that the Redskins lose, I feel like they're getting closer to maybe shutting Antonio Gibson down. Now, I don't know what's really going on. I don't know what's really going on with his shin, but it just has that feeling where each week, he's not practicing. He was a little limited last week. So I do believe that as great as McKissick is, I don't think he'll be there every down back. So if Gibson were to be out, like you alluded to, the Wednesday night waivers, I figured it was worth a small shot. So I think I bid maybe 59. I think I got him a few teams, but I definitely didn't go over 100 in any of them. Maybe 79, 59.
That's a good job, and I'm glad, Jeff. I am glad that no one really had access to watching highlight films from Jared Patterson's time as a Buffalo Bull. Because Western Michigan, Central Michigan, Eastern Michigan, Ball State, whoever was in that conference, they never want to see anything that looks like Jared Patterson again, all 5'6" of it. He absolutely destroyed the MAC. This last Buffalo Bills game had to tear at your heart a little bit, but I think it was a sleeping giant that has been awakened. I think these guys are going to come back much more focused and much more impressive as a team, and I expect them to really run through the rest of this season. And congratulations. Now I understand the reasoning perhaps behind your laden roster of Buffalo Bills. Now, I was trying to figure it out because we wondered where the balance was. Stephon Diggs, he's the gold standard of the team. You went Gabriel Davis. I did not. I kind I kind of read through the tea leaves because I have such respect for Emmanuel Sanders. And Balky and I talked on the show about how the general manager had always wanted and was going to find a place for him. Sanders is playing better football now than he's played all year long. And the two running backs, I thought they both would improve, but I thought Singletary would improve the most. Did you make a concerted effort to go out and get Bills? How did you line them up? Where did you – and I got to tell you before I let you guys go, on our podcast in the KFFSC, I was on there with Robbie Fetcher, and I said, you know what? I'm going to start Beasley in front of A.J. Brown. And Fetcher told me I was crazy, and I still got a plus 5.5 point move. And at halftime, I even looked like more of a genius. So anyway, I'm all about the Buffalo Bills this year. You were there first. Tell me about how you lined up those players.
Well, yeah, I'm glad you guys asked. So obviously I am a Bills fan, but this was less a homerism move and more value-based. I just felt after last year's passing display they put on, I mean, Allen had, over 4,500 yards last year? Besides Diggs and Allen, I didn't think there was proper value being assigned to the Bills' second, third, and fourth receivers. So, yeah, I mean, I have Gabe Davis the most, but my second most owned player is Emmanuel Sanders. So I am with you. I knew Bean had been chasing him for a few years, and Emmanuel was ready to play with a big-armed quarterback because he wasn't shy about it. So I just couldn't believe some drafts I would be like, okay, that's enough. No more Bills. No more Emmanuel. And then they just kept falling. So I really did believe by the end of the summer, if they have those guys, that same offense had a star on their helmet, if they were the Cowboys or maybe a more public team, I think some of these guys would have been going a round or two higher in fantasy drafts. But they just kept falling into my lap, and I expected, the Bills have a soft schedule this year. I expect them to keep throwing. So I just loaded up on as many as I could get, whether it was Zach Moss. And then I had read, I don't know, Farrell, you know more about the inside info of these guys, but Devin Singletary, he'd had two pretty good years in the NFL, and he never really even had a running back specific trainer. So you notice he was a little pudgy last year, I thought, but this year his body looks different. He looks built. He's pretty explosive.
And the other thing too,
he kept falling.
Go ahead, Jeff.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I mean, there's some drafts I would say, all right, no more Devin Singletary. And then he would be staring at me in the 11th round, and said, this team's going to score a lot of touchdowns. So
I love that. I love that analysis.
And I'll tell you this, guys. Two of the receivers that slipped in a lot of my drafts that I was proud to scoop up whenever I could, one Emmanuel Sanders and one Marvin Jones. Underrated veteran receivers that I think have not gotten the respect that they deserve the last couple of years, and they've been cashing me a lot of wins over the last couple of weeks. Farrell, I mentioned it, 18-4 last week, 19-3 this week for me. So hopefully it keeps getting better.
Fire.
I'm on fire. I'm going to brag it up
wow.
because it's going to be crazy because I'll probably go 3-19 this week with the biocalypse on our hands. But
I'm in a lot of trouble. I'm in a lot of trouble this week with all the Bills and Cowboys buys.
Oh yeah, I mean, this is part of the Lost podcast that nobody heard at the start of the show today. But Jeff, I was saying that too. Not only do we have 6 teams on bye this week, but think about the fantasy implications for 6 of those teams: Buffalo, Dallas, the Los Angeles Chargers. Jacksonville with James Robinson or whatever, but the Vikings, and who am I forgetting? Who's the other big? Pittsburgh, with Claypool and Deontay Johnson. Yeah, Najee Harris and all that. It's insane the amount of fantasy guys that are being shelved this week because of buys. But if you can make it through week 7, hey, man, kudos to you. You won't need the support group anymore because things will get easier.
Yeah, I have a lot of Deontay Johnson as well.
Smart.
Yeah,
Balky, Jeff. Fetch and I added it up on our show. We came to the number, and this was a conservative number. There's 26 players that you start no matter what. It's a no thought process. Put them in, start them, let them go this week that are not available. And then there's many others that you would make an argument for getting in your lineup. So it's quite a week, and I seem to be playing head to head. I will say this: I seem to be playing head to head with people that have no players on bye this week. I've looked at some of the matchups and how the hell did this happen? So it's
how it always works.
With Bills and Cowboys, guys, we're if we can get past this week, it's clear sailing the rest of the way. Balky,
that's right.
What do you got on your mind?
Well, I'll tell you this. It's what Kevin Williamson has on his mind. The Bourbon City Baller himself in the chat room tonight. He has a tough flex question that he's facing because of the bye weeks. And, Jeff, I'll pose this to you. He has a situation where he has to start one of the following running backs in his team or on his squad. It's either going to be Khalil Herbert, who is going against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, the suddenly starting Khalil Herbert, obviously with no David Montgomery and no Damian Williams. He is on the road in Tampa. His other running back that he's trying to decide, well, he's going to be right in my backyard here in Green Bay. It's J.D. McKissick, who is at the Packers this week. Jeff, if you could only play one of those guys this week, would it be a Khalil Herbert in Tampa or J.D. McKissick in Green Bay?
Oh, wow. For me, as much as I like Herbert, I like what I see of the tape, but going up against the Bucs run defense with a game script where they'll likely be trailing, and vice versa with McKissick, I don't love starting guys who are catch dependent, but I mean, with that Washington defense, the odds of the football team, as they call them now, the Washington football team trailing, I mean, they're most likely to be trailing early in that game. So I personally would go with McKissick because I expect him to get a lot of garbage time dump-offs versus Herbert and Bucs run D.
Yes. And I'll say this, gentlemen, and Farrell, I'll throw this to you. I'm with Jeff here. I think the negative game script for both of these players, it favors McKissick in Green Bay. It does not favor Khalil Herbert in Tampa, especially when you consider the stout run defense that Tampa has and the not so stout run defense that Green Bay has. So I would roll with McKissick over Herbert, despite Herbert's good showing last week. Farrell, where do you fall in on this?
Yeah, easy decision, Balky. You're right there because Tampa's giving up 50 yards rushing. I think the question is, can Herbert catch the ball? And I think he can, and I think he'll have to get fantasy points. But McKissick, Jeff, if you've listened to us before, McKissick is a favorite of this show. We propped him up last year, and we said earlier this year we pushed the brakes on him a little bit, but we said 60 catches, not 80. He's right on line to get 60 catches. We said 300 yards, and guess what? Through a third of the season, he's collected 100 yards. He's a good player in a good situation. I like him too. He's steady and he's consistently giving you the points that you want. He's the new White, the running back, James White.
James White, yeah. I mean, I liked them even in Seattle when I would watch them in some of their blowouts, but they never really wanted to give him a chance. It was Seattle, right? Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
But yeah, I like Herbert in a vacuum. I like almost Herbert better, but not this week with that Tampa run D, as you said, Farrell, and McKissick's. I mean, Green Bay is probably going to put up some points. I mean, is this Washington defense going to wake up, or what are they doing out there?
Well, it's interesting. It's interesting you say that, Jeff, because I host a afternoon talk show here in terrestrial radio in Northeast Wisconsin, and we've been talking Packers and the WFT all week. And one of the things we talked about is how Washington. You remember, you keep this in mind too. Not that I want to turn this show into an NFL non-fantasy show, but you look at Tampa Bay's march through the playoffs last year. The team that really came closest to beating Tom Brady's Buccaneers was Washington, and it was because of that defense. And for whatever reason this year, the secondary has been totally porous. Chase Young and Montez Sweat, Jonathan Allen, Deron Payne up front, they're doing their job. But the seven guys behind them really aren't cutting the mustard for whatever reason. So I don't really necessarily think that they're going to slow down. The the tonic to get right is not going to Lambeau and facing Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams and Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon and so on and so forth. So I don't really expect Washington to slow down that portion of the Packers' offensive attack. But I do think that we will see Robert Tonyan struggle again for the umpteenth straight week. This is a guy who had, seemingly 40, 50 touchdowns last year from Aaron Rodgers. He had like 1, maybe 2 this year at the most. Can you put your finger on this, Jeff, of why Tonyan has been struggling so much this year? And what are your thoughts on him potentially being able to turn this around and still making a march towards maybe finishing as a top 10 tight end in the FFPC in 2021?
That's a great question. I think I drank a little bit of the Kool-Aid this year based on his year last year. But, Farrell, correct me if I'm wrong, but over the years, I don't think Aaron Rodgers, his tight ends never really put up big numbers over the years. I remember my first year of playing fantasy football, Jermichael Finley from Texas. I had a big man crush on him, and he never got going. Martellus Bennett, he showed some signs, but Rodgers doesn't seem to favor the tight end as much as a Brady or some other guys. I feel like him and Russell Wilson they don't use the tight end as much as some of the other big QBs. So I think
slant
he's going to be very
many slant patterns in the middle of that field, and always a very productive pass-catching running back who kept Rodgers away from the tight end, where Tonyan exploded and where he came to fame with fantasy ballers, despite our 1.5 per scoring per catch in the FFPC, which is where we get that value. With Tonyan, we got the value with touchdowns, 50-odd catches, nothing really to write home about, but those multiple touchdowns, I think it was 7 or 8, and they were very exciting, and they paid off for fantasy managers. So he was a little overinflated, and he's come down to earth is about what you would expect from a Green Bay tight end. Now, there's a team in the AFC East that the Buffalo Bills are consistently bringing down to earth, and that is the Miami Dolphins. But this week, they get back to
Tonyan had 11 TDs last year, which is incredible. So,
11.
He's definitely touchdown dependent.
7 and 11, my favorite numbers. So, fantastic in that. So, but, Tua comes back this week. Devonte Parker, the pride of Ballard High School right here in Louisville, Kentucky, will probably return this week. I think that none of this affects the high ceiling that I have for Jalen Waddle this week. I think Waddle, when he does play the Bills, when he does play New England, but when he plays everyone in this division, I think he's going to be a highly successful receiver for what we need in fantasy. Now, this week, it's Atlanta. And Atlanta has an old defensive coordinator, and they got a lot of young guys on defense, and I like a lot of young guys. I talk about them all night, but I'm finally going to get to my question. Are you playing Waddle? Is he put him in your lineup every week, no matter what? Because I think you really got to play him this week with big expectations.
I think this week for sure for me, and I think he should be an every week player, but I don't know why the Dolphins keep running him on 3-yard routes. Maybe you would know better, but I mean, the kid is explosive. I mean, before his ankle injury in Bama, he was taking 70 yards every other catch, it seemed like. So I definitely think his talent is there, and I think each week the Dolphins are finally going to realize that he is their best option. No offense to Devonte Parker, but I think Waddle's got a bright future, regardless of how messy the Dolphins' offense looks right now.
I kind of regret not going in on Waddle in both my dynasty leagues and redraft leagues because he looks like the real deal. And maybe it's poisoned me seeing him, hobble around on one leg in that college football championship game because he was clearly not ready to come back. And I'm paying the price right now, Jeff. I'm paying the price. He shouldn't have been out there, but he recovered and he's crushing it for the Dolphins right now. Which I targeted him in a lot of my best ball leagues, and
Bulky, I did my first dynasty team this year. I never discovered the joys of dynasty. He was my main target for dynasty. I really wanted him. So
yeah, and well, congratulations.
I really believe he's the
next.
He's the closest thing to Tyreek Hill I've seen in terms of just explosiveness. But the Dolphins, maybe it's because Tua's arm strength or what they think is a lack of. But I've seen Tua throw it deep in college for 3 years. I think they should unleash him a little bit.
Yeah, to Waddle as well. College teammates as well. So we will see what happens there this week against the Atlanta Falcons. I got ridiculed.
Now, one thing that game worries me because I signed the with all these bye weeks with Josh Allen and Dak Prescott. I signed Tua and Matt Ryan. I got to ask my buddy he's an amateur weatherman. I'm gonna have to ask my buddy Frick to keep an eye on the South Florida wind situation.
I had a couple of Dak Prescott teams. Obviously, can't play him this week, and I picked up Tagovailoa in a couple of leagues because I thought he was a good starter in Atlanta. I have not found one person that's behind that. Everybody is ridiculing me, and I'm like, look, these waiver wires. This is high stakes fantasy football. They're picked clean to get Tagovailoa off waivers. I'm thrilled. I'm happy. I love it.
Sure. Oh, you're talking to one. I got him twice, and I was thrilled, 2 for 2. But now I see they're forecasting rain for Sunday.
Well, we'll see what happens there. I mean, it certainly could backfire on me, but I'm still keeping the faith, and we'll see what happens for Sunday morning as far as the weather goes for the Dolphins and the Falcons. Jeff, thank you for hanging out a little bit extra with us. I want to bring a couple of emails that we got in from listeners this week to have you answer them. The first one is Brett in Bunnell, Florida. I don't know how close that is to where the Dolphins and Falcons will be playing, but he writes, "Hi, Jeff. With all the injury issues surrounding the Giants, are there any players not named Devonte Parker worth playing in Week 7? Thank you, sir." That is Brett in Bunnell, Florida. Yeah, and this is interesting. By the way, Brett, thank you for the email. Thank you for listening. This is interesting because Evan Ingram got added to the injury report this week. We already know Kenny Golladay is out. We already know Saquon Barkley is out. Kadarius Toney is out. Darius Slayton is questionable. Sterling Shepard's questionable. It sounds like he had a re-aggravation of his hamstring injury. What are you doing in Week 7 with these Giants, man? I mean, you can clearly trot out Devonte Parker with all these teams on bye. But outside of that, Jeff, you have any kind of confidence in the rest of these Giants players?
The only one I think has a chance to be effective Sunday is Darius Slayton if he's healthy. They also have, Colin Johnson there?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Farrell loves him.
Yeah, I mean, I would have guessed he'd be the next man up, right, if all these guys sit out?
Yes, sir.
They're
pulling him out of parking lot. He was out there controlling the parking lot, making sure everybody had a place to park. And now he's actually going to be in uniform and actually playing if all these players go to the side. This is a player that deserves a spot to play. He's a Dearness Johnson waiting to happen at the wide receiver position.
Yeah, I always liked him at Texas, right? He's the Texas boy.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I mean, Slayton, Daniel Jones got to throw it to someone in blue, right? I hope it's not Carolina blue.
Occasionally.
One more email here for you, Jeff. This is from Lee in St. Clairsville, Ohio. He writes, "Will Randre Stevenson only become startable with a Damian Harris injury, or can he be flexed out in my main event going forward?" Thank you, Lee in St. Clairsville, Ohio. I happen to be a little bit bearish on Randre Stevenson. I have been throughout the drafting season. I know he's picked up his touches and how much he's been participating in the Patriots offense the last few weeks, but I still remain skeptical that this guy could be startable even when Damian Harris is healthy. Jeff, your thoughts on Randre Stevenson and how you view this guy going forward?
Well, I'm with you, Bulky. I was actually very bullish on him in the draft season. I like his talent, but, I mean, I've struck out so many years in a row on trying to predict Belichick's running back usage.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I really think in order for him to be – I think he'll get to startable, but in order for him to be startable and help your team win, I think Damian Harris needs to either be demoted or something has to happen to him injury-wise. There's just not enough touches, it seems, with Harris. The way they do the ball control, 4 yards. They just don't throw enough to their backs, not named James White. So I think Harris has to go down for Stevenson to really emerge.
Farrell, that is all the emails I have, my friend. Do you have one final question for Jeff tonight?
No, Jeff, it's a question I get to ask every week, my favorite question. And I'm going to ask you because I know you're not going to be able to give me a Buffalo Bill. So and you've already talked about one of the sleepers, but every week we seem to have a top drafted player, say through the first 4 or 5 rounds, a player that everybody counts on every week, except maybe you shouldn't count on him this week. I wonder if you have somebody like that who's a 1-week bust waiting to happen and ruin an otherwise great fantasy week 7 for you. And then who might be a sleeper? Because God knows we all need one. You've talked about Patterson. We've mentioned Colin Johnson. Do you have anybody else for us that just might be the guy that you should put in there and get some points from?
Oh, okay. Interesting. Yeah, I mean, I think the obvious guy as far as bust potential, I hate to say it because I love him, but, DK Metcalf. Geno Smith. Now I see he's showing up on an injury report, DK.
Wow.
And with that Saints pass defense, we know they're talented in the secondary. And another guy, and I don't think his is because of the quarterback or his play, but I'm a little worried about Jamar Chase solely because we all saw what the Ravens did to Justin Herbert and the Chargers. I don't know if that Bengals O-line is ready for Coach Martindale's blitzes. So I think if Burrow has the time, Chase will do just fine. But I'm a little worried about them getting ambushed, just like the Ravens did to Justin Herbert.
And Jeff, before you get to your sleepers, I do want to point this out. I host, in addition to my afternoon sports talk show here in Northeast Wisconsin, I do another fantasy football show here on Thursday afternoons. And my co-host, Leo Kiper Jr., when we have to do our busts of the week, he went out on a limb and he said his bust of the week this week for week 7, DK Metcalf in Seattle. So that's another guy who is not believing in DK Metcalf coming for fantasy owners in week 7. And he also said, he didn't say, but one of our dedicated listeners, Dr. K, he said the same thing. He's wondering, should he bench Jamar Chase because of what he saw the Ravens do to Keenan Allen and Mike Williams last week, too. So there is a lot of people out there, a lot of smart people I have a lot of respect for, that are making the same questions as far as, it's week 7. You got to throw out everybody you can, but you might have to temper expectations for Metcalf and Jamar Chase. But people you don't have to temper expectations for, Jeff, somebody that you're throwing out there, somebody who could be a sleeper this week that a lot of people are going to have benched, but that you're a believer in right now.
Ooh, benched. Okay, I was going to say I like Devonte Smith, but he's not exactly a sleeper. A little further down the list, I'm liking the signs we're seeing from Darnell Mooney. And as I mentioned earlier, I think the Bucs are going to get up early on the Bears. And as great as the Bucs defense is and was, we know their pass defense is struggling right now due to all the injuries. So I'm very high on Mooney. A little further down the list, boy, I don't even want to look. I'm afraid to look. What do you guys? Who do you like as a deep sleeper, Balky?
It's it's tough this week, right? Because like anybody who's a deep sleeper, is probably somebody. Who was talking about this? I think it was Chris Allen on one of the Football Guys podcasts. Said like any deep sleeper out there is probably already not only rostered but started this week. Because of the how rough it is now. I have a buddy who plays in a pretty deep league, and Tevin Coleman got added to the injury report this week, which is never good. And he's like, well, what happens if he doesn't go? I said, well, midweek injuries, that's never a good sign. And I said, look at Salvin Ahmed for Miami. Again, against a bad defense at home against the Falcons. Myles Gaskin is so schizophrenic. Malcolm Brown is really not a player that you can count on. Maybe him, but I don't know if I trust him. I know Elijah Mitchell is back, but Trey Sermon is still looming in that backfield for the Colts, so he's a guy that you could probably take a look at as well as far as a quote-unquote deeper sleeper. I still am waiting for the Randall Cobb to step up, the Randall Cobb breakout we saw a couple of weeks ago. I think there's something there. I continue to be a Kendrick Bourne fan, and they face the Jets this week. I think there's something there. I think you could trot him out as well. And Nico Collins, I saw him picked up in a lot of high-stakes leagues this week, too. He's questionable.
Yeah, I was just going to mention him.
He's the game script favors him,
Nico.
Man.
I'm a big Michigan fan, so I love Nico's talent. He's obviously not in a great situation at Houston. Davis Mills is doing his best. He's probably not ready to be out there, but his talent, there's no questioning Nico's talent. I think if he played at a program that threw the ball more, he would have been drafted at least around maybe 2 higher. He's a physical talent.
Guys, I'm going so far down the well looking for sleepers. And Jeff, I can tell you've been around a few days. You've seen a few things in your time. And Balky's talents belie his young age. But I'm going to tell you, I'm going to go deep. I'm going to stay in Houston, and I'm going to go down, down, down. And I'm going to tell you that eligible to return this week is an old name that you're familiar with. Danny Amendola is my deep sleeper for this weekend.
Wow.
Wake him
Lord.
up,
You're going
put him
way
in your
down.
lineup. If you're that desperate, wake him up. Something's going to happen with Danny Amendola versus Arizona. So there you go.
Guys,
this
I
is
never
a
thought
modeling contest.
I never thought I'd see the day when Danny Amendola would be the second most important Amendola in the NFL as far as fantasy football goes. It's Matt Amendola is crushing footballs between the uprights of the New York Jets right now. This is the world we're living in. It's 2021, and we're talking about Danny Amendola here. Farrell, I love it almost as much as I loved our conversation with the 5th-place team in the Footballguys Players Championship, the one, the only, the former minor league hockey goalie turned lawyer. It is Jeff Blair. Jeff, thank you so much for putting up with all of our audio issues tonight. What a pleasurable conversation we had with you. Good luck to you the rest of the way in not only this league, your Dynasty League, but all your leagues. It was so much fun talking to you, and hopefully we can do this again soon, man. Thank you so much.
Now, Balky, can I ask one quick question of you, real quick? Did I hear you
Fire
say
away.
you were
Take
19
time.
and? Did I hear you say you were 19-3 last week?
Last week I was, yes.
So that means you have 22 teams you manage? Because my buddies make fun of me that I have so many teams, but I only have 12 that I manage. So that means I can have 10 more next year, right?
Jeff, that's
You
exactly
can't.
right, and all of Balky's teams are managed in the KFFSC, where you should come and add your 10 teams. We got 10 teams waiting for you. We'll look for an on-air commitment from you right now to make your way to Louisville in August next year. We'll have 10 or more teams for you. You should also increase your territory in the FFPC because I'll tell you what, you're in 5th place in a contest that has 10,000-plus teams. Think about that for a minute.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
It's true. Everything Farrell said is true, Jeff.
I'm going to have to take you up on this, Farrell. Louisville and
There
August,
you go,
I
Balky.
think I can
A
manage
second
that.
on-air commitment from 2021.
Jeff, the first bourbon is on me when we get to
There you
Louisville
go,
next
baby.
August, man.
All right, I'll
you
bring my horse racing buddy Hans. He'll come with me as my
Oh,
consigliere.
God, he'll love it. He'll
Everybody
love it.
should
It's
travel with a horse racing buddy. I've always said that.
Jeff, thanks so much, dude. We'll talk to you again soon, man. This was awesome.
All right, thanks a lot, guys. Thanks.
Jeff Blair, ladies and gentlemen, the 5th-place team in the Footballguys Players Championship and soon-to-be KFFSC competitor in 2022. Can't wait to talk to him. What a good guy to have in Kentucky, huh, Farrell?
Oh, man, I tell you, that's great. I don't know how much of the show I missed, but I can tell you guys had a mighty fine time without me. Thanks for finally getting me patched in.
Well, and I apologize for that. You actually did not miss as much as you thought. As soon as we got live and I got Jeff on, I reached out to you right away. So you did not miss much, which is very good. And we only, as a result, the way that BTR is set up, we have only about 10 minutes here the rest of the way. So let's go rapid fire on these start-sit questions that we got in from listeners, and we'll see if we can get all 4 of them that I wanted to get in tonight. The first one is from Rich in Fort Smith, Arkansas. Got me some bye week issues this week. Who is my second flex in football, guys? Marquez Callaway or A.J. Green? Appreciate you. That is Rich in Fort Smith, Arkansas. Okay, so as we look at this, now Callaway is going to be going up against the Seattle Seahawks defense in Seattle on Monday Night Football. A.J. Green gets the luxury of playing the lowly Houston Texans at home. You can talk about game script. You can talk about a lot of things with this matchup, Farrell. But if you only could start one of these guys, is it Callaway or is it A.J. Green for you in Week 7, man?
Rich, you have no problems is all I can tell you because you can't make a mistake here. Now, Marquez Callaway is on a team coming out of a bye with a quarterback and a speed receiver that must be able to connect. And they won't be able to take their foot off the gas because they fear the situation of Seattle striking quick with the talent that they've got. Seattle's got a lot of offensive talent despite the fact that their quarterback is gone. So I believe in this situation, I'm going to count on New Orleans coming out of the bye week and go with Marquez Callaway. A.J. Green is a gold standard. He's loving it, playing in Arizona. What happens when a talented leadership player doesn't have to do all the work. It's fantastic. He's going to get a lot of touchdowns the rest of the year. But Callaway has a little bigger upside just because of the opponent. You know, Davis Mills is throwing for a lot of yards, but you look at the scoreboard and they can't get to double figures because when they get in the red zone, they have some problems. Let's go Marquez Callaway today.
Yeah, and I'm going to agree with you there. Now, the Dizzle is in the chat room saying it's an easy call. It's A.J. Green, and I don't think it's easy either way. But I will say this, and you just look at the Cardinals matchup, right? 17.5-point favorites at home against the Texans in a total of 47.5. To me, this screams like, okay, it's going to be Chase Edmonds and James Conner a ton in the second half. And even if it's not, you still have Rondale Moore there. You still have DeAndre Hopkins, Christian Kirk, and the newly added Zach Ertz. What do you have in New Orleans? Well, it's Marquez Callaway, and then I don't know. You know, the tight ends haven't been stepping up. Kamara for sure, but Traquan Smith's on the injury report. Michael Thomas still a few weeks away. If they're throwing the ball, it's going to be to Callaway, so I'm going to roll with Callaway there as well. Moving on to John in New Haven, Connecticut. I think I'm going to roll with 2 tight ends this week in my main event. So who joins T.J. Hawkinson in my lineup? Is it Gerald Everett against the Saints or Jonnu Smith against the Jets? That is John in New Haven, Connecticut. John, thank you so much. So another Monday Night Football one here. You have Gerald Everett taking on those New Orleans Saints coming off the bye, as you pointed out, Farrell. You have Jonnu Smith against the lowly Jets. Who's it going to be for John in New Haven, Connecticut, who's looking to add a second tight end in his flex spot?
We counted on Shane Waldron to make Everett an every week start, and we haven't seen that yet. There hasn't been an adjustment. It looks like business as usual with the tight end position. We all hope for Everett to emerge, but every week goes by, we don't see it. Now, Jonnu Smith, we identified the downfield target as Hunter Henry. Jonnu Smith, we said, would be great. You could actually start both these tight ends. It hasn't been that way because of the emergence of some of the receivers, including Kendrick Bourne, and the fact that the quarterback just does not throw the ball that often. There's not a whole lot of attempts coming from Jones. This is a flip-the-coin situation. If you believe that you cannot run the ball against the New Orleans Saints, which I believe, and any of those 4 running backs that we were going to talk about earlier in the show, I don't think they can successfully run the ball against the Saints. Perhaps Everett gets his chance here to do something because the running game isn't work. A short passing game over the middle. Everett can move when he catches the ball. I think when Everett does have his breakout game, it's going to be a big game. I like big games, especially in the bye week. Let's go with Gerald Everett.
Yeah, and it's close for me, too. I think I'm going to go Jonnu Smith here, and I know Hunter Henry's taken the step forward, but Gerald Everett, only 3 targets against Pittsburgh last week. I am a little bit nervous about him getting enough looks in this offense with Geno Smith. So I think I'm going to go with Jonnu Smith, who seems to be going the other direction. But it's one of those things, Farrell. Ask me tomorrow, I might say it's going to be Everett over Jonnu Smith. But right now, I will say Smith. Moving forward to a quarterback question. Ben in Rock Island, Illinois. Spent the weekend there one night. That is Ben's question here. Hey, guys, no Dak for me this week, so I picked up Matt Ryan. But now I'm wondering if Justin Fields against the Bucs could put up some great garbage time stats. Who would you roll with? Great podcast. That's Ben in Rock Island, Illinois. This is interesting, Farrell, because Matt Ryan, you look at that matchup for him this week. He gets the Dolphins. And he gets the Dolphins in Miami. You look at Justin Fields, he's also on the road, but it's in Tampa. And to me, Justin Fields could have an awful first half, but he could end up, similar to how Jalen Hurts has been doing it this season, have a great second half. And for fantasy, you end up looking pretty good. Matt Ryan is a 2-point favorite with a total of 47.5 in that Falcons-Dolphins game. Justin Fields, only 47 on the total. They're 11.5-point dogs. You didn't have Dak Prescott this week. Is Matt Ryan or is Justin Fields the correct start?
I really think what you've got to look at coming out of the bye week is the veteran quarterback Matt Ryan in this situation. He has the emerging Pitts, the returning Ridley, and the oddly phenomenal Cordarrelle Patterson on his club. And then things
oddly
are happening.
Phenomenal. That is great.
These guys. These guys are stepping up for this football team, and I see a lot of things happening with the Falcons offensively that I didn't expect at the start of the year. And we even expected Hayden Hurst and Pitts to complement each other at dual tight ends, and that is beginning to happen there. Justin Fields, do you ever think about it, Balky? Tampa's run defense, you cannot run the ball against them. It might have something to do with how many yards are actually completed against that secondary, because when you can't run the ball, you've got to do something with it. So if you can't run the ball for a quarterback like Justin Fields, a young quarterback, he looked good last week because he was helped by a terrific effort from Herbert. He's not going to have that situation this week. I think it's a very, very long day for him. I agree. I agree that Mooney, as Jeff stated, should look to have a pretty good game. But Matt Ryan's going to put the ball in the end zone this week against Miami. That's this quarterback that I'm going with. And I'm going to check that weather report that Jeff clued us in. But Matt Ryan can throw a good heavy ball in the rain. He should be fine.
As tempting as it is to say to roll with the talent, roll with the upside, roll with the unknown of Justin Fields, I think I've seen enough from Justin Fields to know right now that he is not ready to perform at a primetime level. And Matt Ryan, I think, is, especially when you consider Calvin Ridley is back this week. Kyle Pitts had his breakout game last week. They're coming off the bye. They're facing a defense that's been underperforming. Give me the veteran quarterback with the extra week to prepare over the rookie quarterback going up against the defending Super Bowl champs. Close, tempting to start Fields. I think the smart way to do it is with Matt Ryan. Final question tonight comes from Phil in Tulsa. Dear Farrell and Balky, I just can't seem to start Myles Gaskin on the right week. Is this the correct week to do it based on the every other week theory? Or should I get J.D. McKissick in there against Balky's Packers instead? That's Phil in Tulsa. Thank you for the email, Phil. I'm actually going to be going to the game, Farrell. I don't know if I mentioned this. I'm going to the game Sunday afternoon against Washington, so I will be able to take in J.D. McKissick in all his glory because he is the guy I would start over Myles Gaskin here in this matchup.
Myles Gaskin, to me, looks like sometimes he lacks concentration. His statistics suggest he lacks consistency. I don't want to say it's effort oriented, but I'm not seeing a lot of cohesiveness out of this offense. It looks like the jet lagged Miami Dolphin offense. So I'm in a situation where I realize Gaskin caught 10 of 10 balls against the Tampa Bay Bucks, and they were largely giving him that and won by 25 plus points. We've already talked about McKissick and how we like his consistency. I'm going to side on McKissick here all day long in this matchup, and Gaskin may have a successful game, but only if the Dolphins are really ineffective defensively against Atlanta. And, we talk about Tampa's pass defense. The Dolphins are 29th in defending the pass in the NFL.
And that might be all you need to know right there. And certainly it comes to us from one of the most knowledgeable guys out there in high-stakes fantasy football, the commissioner of the KFFSC, Farrell Elliott. Farrell, thanks so much for being patient with me tonight. I really appreciate you, and I hope the ball bounces your way in the Biocalypse in Week 7 here. And we'll do this again next Friday, dude, and preview Week 8 when, thank God, we won't have 6 teams on bye.
Enjoy going to the game, Balky. I think it'll be a good one.
Thank you so much, Farrell. I really appreciate that, and I hope it is. That is going to do it, ladies and gentlemen, for our show tonight. I want to thank Jeff Blair. I want to thank Farrell Elliott. I want to thank Rob Bryce, of course, everybody for putting up with all the audio issues we had tonight. You guys are truly all-stars for doing that. We will be back at 10/9 Central next week with a fresh high-stakes guest who is dominating the high-stakes landscape. Certainly, hopefully, you tune in for that. We won't have any audio issues. Fingers crossed. Next week. Everybody enjoy Week 7. Make sure you are paying attention to that second waiver run. In case you are having any issues, your weekend officially starts now.
This has been another episode of the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour, presented by MyFFPC.com. It was broadcast live and heard around the world. Balky and Farrell will be back next week with more analysis, interviews, and advice from guests much smarter than they are. Thanks for listening, and we'll talk with you again next week.
As a reminder, ladies and gentlemen, no London game this week. Thank God, right? All the games start at 1 p.m. Eastern time on Sunday, so you won't have to get up super early to get those lineups set. And quite frankly, this might be the easiest lineup setting week ever because so many players, Farrell mentioned it on the KFFSC podcast with Rob Fetcher, like there's 26 slam dunk no-brainer starts this week that cannot be started because of bye weeks. And significantly much more than that would have been started this week had they been available. So get those lineups in and hang on and hold on tight because if you can make it through Week 7, you can make it through anything, much like this podcast tonight. Thank you so much, everybody, for listening. We'll talk to you next week.